Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome back to another Sunday School video. My name is James, and today we will be carrying on with our series we have been going through on Mary Slessor. Now, we've got a lot to get through today, so if you want a recap of what's happened beforehand, if you've missed other ones, please do go back to last week's and the weeks before that. Jess did quite a nice recap last week as well, where you can spot the mistakes. So if you want to do that, please do pause here, go back, remind yourself of what's going on, and then come back to here and now, and we will get started. So now you know that last week we finished on there being Mary having a church built and her house built, and she was able to use that for a few years to be able to tell people about Jesus, about the good news. And over that time, slowly but surely, the people started changing some of the way they acted, started changing some of the things they did. And she was able to tell more and more people about God. Now, it was after about 2 years that Mary became ill again. And so they persuaded her to go back to Scotland to rest. So she did that. One of the amazing miracles in God keeping her safe happened even in the short journey when she was sort of going back to Scotland. When she was going, they were walking, and suddenly Mary realised behind them was a leopard. Now, if you don't know what a leopard is, it's big, like a cat, but far, far bigger than the ones you'd see walking around your neighbourhood. And they've got spots on them. Google it. But there was one of them, and it was right behind Mary, prowling behind her, and God kept them safe. The leopard didn't attack. At one point, Mary's account says that it was so close she could feel its breath on her legs, but it didn't attack. Eventually, it got bored of stalking them and left them safely. So Mary went back to Scotland, but although she was meant to be resting, we've probably seen a theme by now that she didn't just stay in bed and have a rest. No, she went out. She was speaking to people throughout Scotland, preaching at different churches, spreading the good news of God. And during that time, she was trying to convince more people to go and be missionaries. And she used the analogy of a soldier, that when the king or queen in the country wants soldiers, and they ask the soldiers, people go and sign up. And they say, yes, I'll be a soldier for my country. And she was saying that for the King of Kings, who's God, who's Jesus, that people should be signing up to be soldiers for him to go and tell other people about Jesus. So that's what she was trying to say, that people need to go and fight for the King of Kings while she was in Scotland. Now, when Mary returned to Nigeria, as you might be able to guess, things weren't as they were when she left. People had started to fight again, and the different chiefs were falling out. And when she got back, one of the people came to her and they said, Ma, run. And it was because the chiefs, they were fighting over a piece of land, a disagreement over whose it was. And so she sent ahead this runner to say, tell them not to fight, tell them I will be there soon. And she walked on her own through the jungle to where they were meeting, to where they were having this argument. And there was lots of chiefs there, and they had sort of 50 warriors each, all around in a big sort of clearing. And Mary went and she sat with the chiefs, and she listened to all they had to say over the course of the whole day. She listened to every one of them. And then at the end of him, God gave her the wisdom to be able to suggest them a fair solution. And she drew a map on the floor in the dust, and she got them to choose which bits of land they thought they should have, and they were able to fairly split up the land. So no fighting happened, but God gave her the wisdom to be able to have a fair solution. So all the chiefs were happy, and they went away without any fighting with their new split up bits of land. Now, after this, Mary was a little bit disheartened that when she had been away, they had sort of begun to fight again and change. And she said this quote: "All is dark except above. All is dark except above," and that means that what she thought was all. So everything in front of her, everything in Africa, on the world was dark, full of sin. But she says, except above being heaven, where God is. Saying, yeah, it was disheartening for her. But it wasn't all bad. As she went on, there were some people from the society in England, and they encouraged her. They said, "You are doing the best work for anybody in this part of Africa, telling people about Jesus." And then there was help sent to her. There was a missionary carpenter. So a carpenter is somebody who makes things. They often can do many different trades, but yes, he made things. And so he came over to help Mary, and she was encouraged by this because although he was only coming over for a short amount of time, temporarily, but it was encouraging for her to have somebody with her helping her. Now, one of the chiefs, Chief Edom, his son, was working on his own house, and he was in a terrible accident. So, whilst he was building, a log fell onto him, and he was very, very badly injured from it. Now, Mary was called for, and she went to him and she nursed for him for some weeks, for about 2 weeks. And then she left him one morning to go to church. And then while she was away, a witch doctor came to him. Now, these are people who are very bad. They do things that aren't medically correct. So things that we know today, like if you've got a headache, you might have some Calpol, which is a real medicine. What witch doctors do is they do things that aren't real medicines, and they lie to people about it, making them better. And whilst Mary was gone, a witch doctor snuck in, and Chief Edom's son, they went to him and they made his condition a lot worse with what they did, and he unfortunately died. Now, Chief Edom was very angry about this and tried to send people to the town that the witch doctor claimed he was from, and tried to send people to kill them. But Mary pleaded with him and was able to send word ahead for the people of that town to run away and escape being killed. And similarly for the funeral. Funerals at that time, usually they would somebody would be killed, or there would be human harm that would happen. But Mary pleaded that they would forgive the people of this witch doctor's village, and that they wouldn't harm people in the funeral. And that's what happened. Chief Edom's son, at his funeral, for the first time in about 1,000 years, no human harm had happened at a funeral, but they were able to just celebrate the life of Chief Edom's son, which was incredible that for 1,000 years they had done this tradition, but for when Mary came and what she was teaching them and what they were learning about God and about forgiveness and about the importance of human life, that they were learning, and they were changing the way they did things, even something sort of as ingrained into a culture as a funeral, which was really encouraging for Mary. Now, after that, so after the funeral, Mary she didn't just want to stay in this one village where she was before, so she went to a new village. It's about 15 miles away, called Akpap. I imagine that's not how you say it, but that's how it's spelled, so that's how I'm going to say it, Akpap. And she went there, where her house was just a small thatched 2-room building, and it was bad there. Pretty much as soon as she got there, there was an epidemic of a disease called smallpox. Now, in the West and in Scotland and England and many places, this was a disease that had been got rid of because of something called a vaccine. You may have heard of sort of the word vaccine mentioned quite a bit recently, but it means that once you've had a vaccine for something, you can't catch the disease of it, or you're far less likely to. And so, although smallpox, there was a vaccine in places like Scotland, where Mary was from, and in England, this vaccine hadn't reached this small village in Africa. So vaccines were sent over. She wrote to the missionaries, and they sent her vaccines. And for about a year, she stayed there administering the vaccines to people. And there, she had no help, nobody, because of the nature of the disease, because it's a very, very, very horrible disease. People can die from it, and people unfortunately did die from it. And the village she was in, people wouldn't help her. They said, no, we don't want to be near that. So her 2-bedroom house that I told you about, the small thatched one, she would use that, and she turned it into a hospital. And she would care for the people who were very, very sick in her house. And it spread, the disease even spread back to the village she was in before. And the Chief Edom, he also caught it, and he became very unwell with it as well. And eventually the disease caused such a large effect over the 2 villages that pretty much nobody could live in them. There wasn't enough people. They had fled to other villages to try and stay away from the smallpox. And it was really, really scary. And Mary worked so hard, and she was really, really, oh, blimey, that's quite loud. And she was really worn out. And when she went back to the original village, she fainted. She became unconscious, and the missionary who was with her and another found her, and they said, "You're tired. You're unwell. You have to go back to Scotland." And so they were in the process of trying to get her to go back to Scotland. And as they were doing so, she heard of a new village, of a tribe of people who were cannibals. So they weren't very nice to each other. They didn't respect human lives. They didn't value lives. And she heard the name of the town. And even though she was incredibly unwell, and she couldn't really, people thought she couldn't go there. She was too unwell. But she heard the name, and she said, "Yes, I would like to go there to the people." So, well, if you want to find out what happened, you will have to tune in next week to find out the next instalment. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you've enjoyed. I will see you next time. Bye bye for now.